Hello and welcome. I am the Restless Kaiser and we are modelling for advantage. So on Christmas Eve, Battlefront made a massive announcement of their roadmap for the year, and in the course of this video I'm going to break that down to you, looking at the 3 games that we're particularly interested in the channel. First up, we're going to talk very briefly about tanks, because there isn't much information there about that that's new. We'll then look at Flames of War, and finally we'll move on to look at a Team Yankee. They've given us a roadmap for the whole year, but there's a lot more detail at the front. If I occasionally look over to the side, I've got my notes on the laptop here, so I apologise if that's a little bit distracting. Hopefully the edits will get rid of most of that. So on January the 25th, they have slated the Bagration German release. Interesting that this release seems to have most of the late war German equipment, although Bagration is in fact a Soviet summer offensive, but it is the branding that they're using as part of this release schedule. So you'll see some stills that they've shared with us, what we know we're getting in this release, as well as a new book with hopefully some new stats. We're going to see a Panzer IV L70, or I think it's sometimes called a Stug 4. It's a self-propelled tank destroyer with a long-barreled 75mm gun, I think. We're also going to see a Hetzer, which can also be built as a Marder. Now this is interesting, and I'm talking about plastic releases here, because both of those are built on the Czech 38T chassis, I think, and it may be that this same sprue is going to allow us to use that Czech tank for the early and the mid-war. Modern research seems to be showing that actually, although we tend to think of the 38T as an early war tank, it's mostly used in its largest numbers in Barbarossa in the original initial invasion. There aren't that many of them available for the invasion of France. Also as part of this release, also in plastic, and these things have all been promised in plastic, are the self-propelled anti-aircraft artillery units. They look like they're on the Panzer IV chassis, which is the Ostwind and the Wirbelwind. Now, if these are following the same pattern as we've seen with some of their other equipment, that's likely to be issued as a full Panzer IV late sprue with an additional upgrade sprue, which gives us the options for those interchangeable turrets. I'm certainly hoping for that, because I won't need to paint nearly so much. I can just paint these new turrets and plug them in with a little bit of luck. As well as the Bagration German box, we're going to get one of these new starter boxes. If these are following the same pattern as we've seen before, everything inside it is going to be plastic, and it's going to be 70 UK pounds or 100 US dollars, and it's going to have between 17 and 20 vehicles. So looking quickly at it, and I'll show you we're still here, it looks like we're going to get 5 of the new tank destroyers, we're going to get 3 of the Hetzer stroke Marder kit, and we're going to get 2 of the self-propelled anti-aircraft artillery. This is great because most of the contents of that box are new. These are really good value. You're paying somewhere in the region of £3 a vehicle if you include the infantry sprues and so forth. Fantastic starter sets. Really excited for that. We will be unboxing one here on the channel, provided we can get hold of one in time. Later in the year, in April, we're going to see what they're labelling as Axis allies, or more accurately, Axis minors. What we're talking about here is fundamentally Finns, Romanians, Hungarians. It doesn't seem to include Italians, but I suppose it's late war stuff. They surrendered in 1943, and it looks like we're going to get at least one new plastic kit. Now bear with me a moment. Zerini. Apparently that's a Hungarian tank destroyer or self-propelled gun. So as part of this Axis Miners release, it looks like there's going to be another one of these starter boxes, a Hungarian one. It's got 5 of these new Zerini assault guns in it, and it's also got a lot of German equipment. I know that some Axis Miners did get German equipment, especially in the late war, so there seems to be some Panthers in here, some more Hetzers, and a few other bits. There's a still there. Whether we're going to get anything new in plastic for the Finns and the Romanians, I think is really unlikely. I think that they would have showcased it here. It doesn't mean there won't be anything perhaps in resin, but I think it's likely to be more repurposing existing German equipment, for example, to use. Maybe we'll get some unique crew sculpts to go with them. I don't really know how different the uniforms were actually of the soldiers. Last and most exciting part, for the second half of the year, they've been a little bit more vague about this. Presumably they can't commit to a schedule like that. In fact, throughout the whole of this year, Battlefront have really struggled to stick to the commitments that they'd made. It's understandable because of Corona and so forth, but each of their releases has been quite heavily delayed. So what we're going to get in the second half of the year is we're going to get the Bulge expansion, which consists of 3 books, British, German and American. It says that the British one is the final British book. I don't know whether that means there'll be more Americans after that. I'm not sure. So we've got 3D images of these 6 new vehicles which are coming to us in plastic. We've got 2 Shermans, which is the Easy 8 and the Jumbo. We've got 2 other American vehicles, which is the Hellcat, which I know a lot of you have been waiting for, and also the Chaffee, which is quite a late war tank, a light tank, and finally the 2 German tanks. We have got the much awaited Tiger II or King Tiger and the Jag Tiger. How many of these saw service? But you can always play that one platoon that was fighting in this particular place, right? Really nice to see these models making it onto the table at last, especially the Hellcat, I think, for American players. Finally, in the text of this Bulge release for the second half of the year, it mentions Sextons and Comets, both fairly late war British vehicles. Presumably they have an intention, but they don't even have a 3D design for that yet. So this stuff is all very exciting to see in plastic, obviously, but we're talking about second half of the year here. Interesting side note, at the end of the document it says that there's something very exciting coming for December for Flames of War. It says Wolverines. I'm reading it right there. But we already got Wolverines. Isn't that just a nickname for the M10? I'm not sure what that is. Maybe there's another vehicle called a Wolverine, or maybe they mean the M36, the nickname the Jackson. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that that's a model that's already out in plastic. If you know more, down in the comments. If, like us, you enjoy Battlefront's games, Flames of War and Team Yankee, one of the best ways you can support the channel is to buy some of their crap from us. Check out our website, modelingforadvantage.co.uk. All profits, which are quite small, go towards supporting the YouTube channel. So Team Yankee, fairly new area for us on the channel, but still following the releases closely. It's got so much overlap with Flames of War. It's a very easy game for us to get into. In March, we're seeing the first of their releases, and it's going to be the West Germans. I know people very excited about the Leopard. Has so many fans out there. We're going to see a new plastic Leopard 2A5, and we're going to see a new plastic Marder 2. There's also going to be another one of these box sets that get released with them. Hopefully they can keep the prices of these at the same level they have been. They have mentioned a price rise for next year, but they seem to refer to specific kits. Let's hope so, because they were fantastic ways of getting into a new army, and as a channel it's very good for us to be able to unbox them. This is one of the few releases where they mention a resin item that's coming with it, which they've mentioned a Weasel. A little bit disappointing, I suppose, because I think there's quite a few variants. It's some kind of light tank that the West Germans use. I don't know a lot about them, but some of the more modern equipment, so we'll have to see. But I guess for those that want it, it is available. Just a shame that they're still following a system of releasing stuff in resin and metal, and clearly the plastic kits are the way to go at this stage. Finally, for Team Yankee, in June we're going to see some of the Soviet miners, the Czechs, the Poles and the East Germans being released. We see a book there, Warsaw Pact. Fine, it says in the text that there'll be some new models. At this stage we've no idea what they are. I think some of the stuff we just had in the Soviet release, though, like all the Gaskin variants, I think they're widely used by Axis miners as well. So I don't know specifically what we're going to see there, but who knows. One of my hopes is that we're going to see some new infantry in decent sculpts rather than the old metal, but I doubt it. I'd really hope for plastic frame infantry, but I think the way that they're going, they're very fixed on their thermoplastic, but we'll have to see. Last but by no means least, World of Tanks, the miniatures game. They gave us a leaflet in the starter set, and they've shown it for quite a while, which previews the first 5 waves. We've only had 2 so far. There's still therefore several months worth of releases to come out for World of Tanks, the miniatures game. I assume some of the stuff that we have seen previewed for Flames of War, like the King Tiger and so forth, are going to come in that second stage of releases. They just are not committing to a time frame yet, which is fair enough. But that's my overview of what Battlefront have said they're releasing over the next year. There's a lot of exciting stuff in there, really enthusiastic for always for the new plastic kits and the chance to get some of the smaller armies having access to some of those things. We'll definitely be looking at getting those 2 German armies on the channel, because I tend to play Germans in most of the games, and the late war Americans, the Hellcat, really excited about that. Hope this was useful for you guys. Thank you for watching. If you like the kind of stuff that we do, rather than just waiting for the blooper reel, why don't you head on over to our website, modelingforadvantage.co.uk. We've got affiliate links to places like Whaling Games there, where when you buy your models, if you buy it through our link, we get a little bit of kickback and it doesn't cost you a penny more. Finally, in the text of the document, but with no pictures, it also mentions comics and bleh. Finally, in the text of the release, rather than the photographs, it also mentions comics. Comics? Finally, in the text of